Have you ever wanted to know what an AI startup does behind the scenes? I'm Daniel, CEO and founder of Boone Voyage. We're right here in Boone coworking, and on a typical day, we're absolutely surrounded by startups who are building the next generation of AI applications. And this video, I'm really excited to show you just how we do that. From marketing to building prototypes and all the way down to writing code using AI tools. You don't have to be a software engineer to be able to do this. I'm going to teach you some of the tricks that I use to be more effective at this task. Coming up. Welcome back. In my career, I've helped companies build a little over $200 million of equity value, being part of teams that build new products and have new strategies in software. But something I always come back to is a really great book called Made to Stick. Made to Stick is a book that helps you understand the things that resonate with people and that will make your product so sticky they won't even know how they lived without it. If you don't want to read the whole book, though, how could you use AI to get you up to speed pretty darn quickly and then communicate that to your team? Since I know the title of this book here by Chip Heath, I'm going to go ahead and stick that into ChatGPT and ask it for a summary. And sure enough, it comes back with what Chip came up with, which is called the success model. And the success model says your idea needs to be simple. It needs to be unexpected. So you got to have something a little bit different. It needs to be concrete and use specific details that people can visualize. It has to be credible. This could be having a credible voice in the industry speaking on your behalf. We see this with Mint Mobile and Ryan Reynolds. It needs to be emotional. Connect with people's feelings. Don't just use analytical arguments to convince them of what they need to buy from you. The stickiest things are truly emotional. A lot of times they hook into people's fears about not having your product again. And then, of course, we have stories. Storytelling is all the hotness right now, but there's just nothing better than a great story. Well, the story of Boone Voyage is that I was helping other companies to build so many different products that I realized it was my time to go in and try this on my own. I'm also a parent of 2 kids, and so I love to build apps that build a better future for them, for their relationships with their parents, and anything that has a real positive bent to it. We don't love to build AI that replaces people, but instead kind of enhances their ability and gets us back to a higher quality of life. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later in this video. For now, I told you that we have these 6 ideas that came out of the book, but what if I want to communicate this quickly to my team? Well, what we can do is we can actually take this text right here and copy it to our clipboard and then use a tool called Napkin AI. I love Napkin AI. It's a really simple tool because you can paste in a piece of text like this, especially things that have bulleted lists, and then right over here on the side, as you can see, simple, unexpected, concrete, I can click on this little blue lightning bolt. And when I do that, I'm going to get some infographics. And those infographics then allow me to generate automatic visuals that I can either put in a PowerPoint slide or in a presentation. So here's like a little brain here that would represent that. Some of these aren't my favorite, so I'm going to click that and then we can reopen, and sometimes you get a better one. Let's take a look. Ooh, I like this one, the success pyramid. So I'll click on that and we'll load that up. I could use a colored version, but we'll go with the monochromatic one. And just like that, I now have the success pyramid. I could print this up, put it at the office, hand it out. We can do whatever it takes to make sure that people stick to these core values when they're thinking about their products and building them. So Napkin AI is a fantastic tool for converting your list into an infographic. We also love to use tools like Canva, so I've used some AI tools here to build this flyer for one of our new apps that's coming out called OurOtters. Let me tell you a little bit about OurOtters. The story starts with me going to the Georgia Aquarium and really enjoying the experience so much that I ended up buying these 2 otters right here. Now, otters are known in the animal kingdom as some of the best parents out there. They take care of their pups from the moment they're born until they're almost adults, and they live together in lodges. It's inspired me to think about all the different ways that we could learn from them how to take care of our kids better. So OurOtters is an app that we've built, and it is intended to help divorced families to be able to get along better and to be able to share information about their children. And ultimately, it's about building stronger emotional connections with your children by avoiding a lot of the cat fights and other things that happen between 2 parents that just don't live together anymore, and that frankly don't get along on everything that they have to get along on to see their kids prosper. So let's get into a little bit about OurOtters. I'm going to take you to the site for it, and it looks like this. Now, when I think about marketing, I want to take a step back and talk about what I think good marketing is going to look like into the year 2025. This is an opinion, it's not a fact, but I talk to a lot of people who kind of share this same viewpoint. One of the problems with the new AI revolution is that we're all excited about it and that it's fun and you're playing around with it. But there's becoming something of a fever pitch that AI could actually start taking away some of our jobs, or maybe even just taking away the fun of our jobs. Are we really just going to spend the rest of our lives talking into a box and letting it answer all of our questions and solving all of our problems? Is that going to give us the fulfillment that we're looking for? So it's my opinion that AI will kind of find itself to be a bit of a boogeyman for the rest of us. Maybe companies that are out there pitching AI as a linchpin of what they're selling may find that in a revolt in which people don't want AI in their lives, when they want to reject that and go back to something that's a little more wholesome and nostalgic to the past, those people are going to be looking for brands that help them connect with something from days gone by. So our choice for OurOtters was not to lean into the AI tagline, even though there's AI under the hood, but instead lean into that nostalgic feel and that nostalgic look. It's also true that we wanted to make sure that the messaging was not the #1 divorced app, or something that had this really harsh tone, because the purpose of the application is to give parents an AI mediator that allows them to communicate with each other using really effective and strong language that's been approved by child psychologists, by divorce mediators, and just anybody involved in the mental health space that understands the importance of positive communication. So we want our app to have that quality to it, and what better way to do that than to not follow the traditional enterprise model. So as we scroll through here, we're going to find that it has certainly more of an emotive quality to it, and we've got some more work to do on this site, but I think for a first run, it looks pretty darn good. And we're still playing around with some color schemes and the light and the dark. If you have an opinion on this, I'd love to see your notes in the comments. But let's get a little bit more into messaging and talk about what this app is intended to do, and how AI is going to help. How are we going to make it sticky? Well, let's talk a little bit about how AI could be built into products like this that have a nostalgic feel, but they'll still have a super slick and modern interface that makes people think they're not even using AI at all. So right over here, I'm going to get into what I call our shared expense prototype. Now, as you can imagine, there's some rough edges here that we need to sand out. But one of the key and core things that parents always argue about, especially when their kids live in separated homes, is expenses. You might have one parent who has a child custody arrangement that awards them child support, but in other homes, they can maybe split expenses on a more ad hoc nature. Imagine a scenario where a mother takes her child to a karate class and pays the $80 monthly bill for karate. She knows she wants to ask dad for $40 or half of that bill. But usually that involves either handing him the piece of paper and he says, "What is this for?" There's a lot of things that can kind of come out of that interaction that may not go as planned. So imagine instead an application where you can pull out your phone. I've got the OurOtters link right up here. And you can take a picture of that karate receipt. AI is able to first figure out what that receipt is. Oh, this is a receipt for something. And then based on that, be able to strip out all the information from it. Who was billed, the date, the time, and the amount. And it can grab all that data for us and create a brand new expense in the application. So from this prototype, we see that a parent's responsibility, the only thing they have to do is pull up the OurOtters app, take a picture of that receipt, and it's going to automatically add that expense right here. And so as an example, we can see her soccer gear, lunch money, school supplies. I'm going to go ahead and show you that this is a shared expense, and I know that because the parent who took the receipt in our example here chose the middle icon, which is I expect this to be a shared expense. If instead they knew it was just for them or just for the other parent to pay, they would click in this manner right here. But I'm going to go ahead and make this a shared expense, and we'll open up school supplies. And we'll see here that it's listed as notebook, pens, and a new backpack for a school year. In the future, we'll have a little icon that shows the actual receipt right there. Now, one thing you'll notice too is the ability to discuss that specific expense right here. So I'll click on karate lessons, and we'll see that there have been no messages sent. If one parent needs to send a message to the other parent asking them to pay for this, the traditional method would be to pull out your phone, send a text, and hope they write back. But with our system, you'll be able to click this little AI button here, and it has some pre-canned things that you can say. So I'm going to go ahead and click on I've paid my share, can you confirm message. Now, while that isn't specifically AI, here's where things are going to get interesting. In the future, and we're working on a release in the next 6 weeks, so this will be in the app in the next 6 weeks. When one parent sends a message to the other, a little AI otter is going to come out with his little looking glass, and he's going to verify and take a look at that message and make sure that it uses the tone and the sentiment that we expect in a professional way. You know, we don't want parents talking to each other in any way that's downtrodden, so he's going to make sure to mediate that message and just double check it. And if he finds something in that language that doesn't quite fit the spirit of congeniality, let's say, he'll write back and say, would you like some help in rewriting this? If you don't know what to say, you can click on this little microphone right here, and you can record a message and say, I don't know what to say. Can you help me ask the other parent to pay for half of this bill? So suddenly we're starting to use AI in a way that improves the language, the tone, and the sentiment, and this improves the communication between those parents and just skips over all the risks that they're going to get in a fight over something. While we can't mitigate the risk that one of them doesn't want to pay, we can certainly ask them to speak nicely to each other. So I'm going to close this one up here for karate lessons, and we'll go up here to soccer gear, and we'll open it up. And we'll see here that there was already a conversation about this specific item. I think we should split it. And they were able to mediate the concern right here and there. So as you can imagine, we'll be adding this for other things like report cards and health insurance forms, anything of that nature. Now, I should mention real quick that we're not going to do anything that has a HIPAA violation in there, but as long as it's non-HIPAA data, we'll be able to store it. We'll be looking to get HIPAA certified sometime in Q3 of this year. I'll also say that one of my favorite use cases is if a child brings home, say, an invitation to a birthday party, you'll be able to take a picture of that invitation, and it will understand it's an invitation. It will add it to the calendar automatically using AI, and then it will tell the other parent via a notification that there's an expected birthday party coming up, and you just want to be aware of it. So there's a calendar feature in our app as well. But I've spoken a lot about this demo and kind of how we think about how to build products. I first talked about marketing, and then I got into the prototype phase. But what if I am prototyping something and I actually want to put it into real application? This seems to be the really tough thing that the internet is latching onto right now. They'll say, oh, you know, AI is great for building prototypes, but how do you actually move it into production? That's where I'm going to get into next. So we talked about on the made to stick list 6 things that you got to do at your startup. Simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories. When I look at our website for OurOtters, I notice that the bar at the top, while it's clean and it's simple, what we're still missing, aside from the little bubbles that are dancing up and down, is something that really communicates that that animalistic feel that I'm looking for. Something oceanic, I guess you might call. So I went into ChatGPT and I asked it, tell me the 5 types of vegetation that otters swim in all the time. And it gave me a list of those different things. And based on those, I was able to ask AI next, okay, how can I integrate Kelp into the application to further communicate that we're a fun app that involves otters? So I asked ChatGPT, using the Kelp example, I said, go ahead and make me a navigation bar with 2D animation, waving kelp that you would find in the ocean. It needs to exhibit the characteristics and features and physics of real-world kelp. I think React Canva package is the right package. And now we see here that it was able to build all of this code and be able to explain to me how I should integrate all this. Now here's the funny part. I almost never write any code anymore. Instead, I become an orchestrator of AI and I walk it through the process. I understand everything I'm reading here because I have been a software engineer for the last 20 years, but I don't have to understand it if I know how to ask the right questions. And so in this case, it gave me a whole lot of code. In the next phase, to get this from prototype into something that I can actually visualize so I can see that kelp moving, because my goal is to get that kelp up here into the top just to give us a little bit of extra flash, just a little pop. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab all this text, and we usually do that down here at the bottom of ChatGPT. Click this copy button right here. And from there, I went into an app called v0.dev. V0. This is where you can have chats with AI to build another prototype, which is kind of more of a web-based prototype. And we'll see here that based on this, it was able to create a nav bar, and it's got, look at that, some little dancing kelp up at the top. Now, I did have a little bit of a conversation with it, but it was able to then, build something that actually worked. And I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. So the very next step for me is once I have this prototype, we can go over to the code section of V0 and we can look at the animations that it's able to do. So here we'll see that it's got some React animations and it's all the mathematics behind the wavy part. That was the physics that I asked for in a previous example. We'll go to Kelp strand here, and this is where we define what each strand looks like, and then a couple other component pages and pieces. This represents 4 different code files that we need to be able to move this waving kelp into the real application for our is currently live on the web. Now, I'm careful sometimes about how I release things because I want to make sure I don't break anything that's in production. If a customer could see it, we got to be careful about not breaking it. So what I did in this case is I took these 4 files and I brought them over into a program called Windsurf. And I pasted them into this code window right here. Now, if you don't know how to operate code like this, and you don't know how to use these systems, that's okay. You can download Windsurf yourself, and you can get started by going here to codium.com/Windsurf. It's a tool that you can get started for free, but then they have some very inexpensive options for being able to automatically write code using this tool. And I think it's changed the way that I code. Like I said, I've been a software engineer for the last 20 years. I studied AI at the University of Texas and MIT, and I still am someone who believes that information is becoming democratized. If you can read it in a book, eventually AI is going to know about it. So it's more about putting a lasso around AI and pulling it in the direction that you want it to go. You need to become a manager of AI. So I've leaned very heavily into using these tools instead of writing every line of code myself. But back to the point, once I have this code and I'm able to put it into Windsurf, one of the problems that we have is even once I get it into here, I still don't know what I need to do next, and I still don't necessarily have a way to make sure that Windsurf follows my standards and my rules for software engineering. Because AI can just go off the rails. We've all of us who have written any kind of code in AI systems know how crazy and bad that code can be. So you need to enforce some coding standards, and Windsurf allows you to do that using Windsurf settings. If you open up Windsurf settings, you can actually set either global AI rules or workspace AI rules. Global rules are rules that Windsurf will follow no matter which project you're working on, whereas workspace rules are coding rules that will be followed just for this one project. So for the OurOtters project, our company, I went ahead and added these workspace AI rules. Now, where did I get these rules? Well, right over here, we'll come back to the browser. There's a website out there called .cursorrules.com. It's completely free. They've just got some little ads down here running at the bottom. That's how they get paid. And over here on the side of .cursor rules, we'll see that they have all these different languages that people write software in. We are a Next.js shop for the most part, so I just click on Next.js, and when I do that, I've got this little rule kit right here, and I can grab this. These are instructions that are telling the AI system these are the standards that I want. Now, I did go back and change some of these things to be kind of more to my liking, but for the most part, I actually loved what came out of the box, and I think it would work for almost anybody. So giving these extra rules in there will help to fine-tune your AI for the specific type of coding task that you like to perform. Now let's go back to Windsurf and you can take a look. It's saved right here in Windsurf rules. Now what's really cool about that is that as you're chatting with your agent over here and giving it instructions, it's always going back and reading the rules and making sure that the code that it writes follows this rule kit. I think this is a huge thing for anybody who has had problems with AI not doing what's being asked to do. So let's go back into the application then, and let's talk a little bit more about the code. Oh, I'll go back to the preview for starters. Let's see if I can get this to load. And we'll notice right here that I've got this little nav bar. But what I knew is that I don't want to put this directly into our site. I want to build a test case first. So I went ahead and did that. And I asked Windsurf through a series of questions. I said, I want you to take the code that I just pasted in, those 4 files from v0.dev that I dropped into Windsurf. And now I want you to take those and build me a prototype that I can reflect and look back on. And we can see here that this test site here, this nav bar, has more of the look and feel that I was looking for. I really just, in plain English, walked it down to this thing. It was important to me that it have not only the right physics, but that the motion be moving all in sync with each other, just like kelp would move in the ocean. And I also asked it to make sure that if we were in light mode, that grass would just be less opacity, more transparent, so it doesn't really like clutter the screen, right? And then now that I really love this and I talked to my team and they enjoyed this as well, one of the last steps we've got to do is we've got to get this kelp from this menu into this nav bar right here. And you might think that's a copy paste, but like anything in software engineering, well, you got to move things in careful and measured steps. Now, if I handed this to a junior software engineer, it might take them a couple hours. Maybe they can bang their head against the wall. So one of the things I love to do is to go into Windsurf and ask it to write up a plan for me. And that's exactly what I did. If we scroll back up here, we're going to notice I said, this is awesome. I like to compliment AI sometimes. Is it easy to now add this kelp animation to the main site without changing the existing tests? We should create all new components for the main site in the nav bar. You need to study this thoroughly and not just blindly move the code over. I need to see a project plan from you about how you'll do it, and you can ask for my approval before you move it over. Be incredibly detailed. So, that's a little aggressive, but I guess the AI didn't mind. It came up with a project plan, and it gave me these 6-phase implementation for how it moved the code over. So as soon as it came up with that, I took a look at it and I said, boy, that's a lot of work. I really don't want to do this by hand. I understand why you think that's important, but I don't want to do this by hand. So in the very next step, I said, I want you to make a page called Kelp Main Rollout as a page, and it has all these items that you just listed up here as checkboxes so that I can see it in a web page. So we'll pull this back over here, and now we take a look, and look at this. Here's the Kelp Nav Rollout checklist. Couldn't quite read these checkboxes, so I'll go back over here and turn on dark mode. And from there, I still have this page, Kelp Main Rollout, and it has a list of all the things that Windsurf needs to do next. And just like that, I've just given my AI some things that I not only approved as being good ideas, but that it can follow to the letter. So I'm going to pull this back off the screen. We'll go back to Windsurf, and you'll see that I said start implementing and keep modifying and updating the checklist as you go. I'll go ahead and click accept here. Sometimes it'll ask you questions of things that you have to run in the terminal, and I'm just going to go ahead and accept those. And as it's working its way down the system, it's literally going to start making changes to the checklist. Let's go ahead and let it finish. Now, let me talk a little bit about Windsurf and what makes it so different than, say, coding with ChatGPT. While ChatGPT is a pretty darn good coder, it's only one model. With Windsurf, you have access to ChatGPT 4.0, you have access to Claude Sonnet 3.5 from the folks at Anthropic, and you also have something called Cascade Base, which is their base model. And I found the base model to be pretty darn good as well. So it's just 3 different brains that can code. You can pick whichever one you want. If you choose Claude Sonnet, which is my personal favorite, then you may end up with really great code, but you also get capped at about 1,500 agent actions per month. And then you just have to pay a little bit more if you need more actions. I'm somebody who, as a CEO, I don't write a ton of code. It's nighttime. I'm here alone, and this is my opportunity to play around with this stuff. Otherwise, my team's usually working on this during the day. But in any case, we're here and we're watching this agent. And what's so cool about it is it's not just writing one file and giving us one piece of text back. It's changing multiple components at a time, and it's working way down the checklist. And take a look at this. If I pull this back in, you can see it's checking off the list, and I can watch it work as it goes. And the really cool part is it built in a testing strategy. So as soon as it's done with some of these steps, we're going to find out that it can test itself as well. Now, if your AI gets stuck on something, which it very often does with these agents, why does it get stuck? They don't like to have it running, infinity. So if you were, maybe went out for lunch, it wouldn't use up your whole AI bill. So they'll stop, and all you got to do is type into the box, continue. That's the instruction that it needed to keep going. And so that continue is going to keep it running along here. What's another reason why I like to use these checklists? This has to do with something called the context window. A context window is the amount of information that you can feed into an AI and get a result out of it all in one shot. And that context window can grow over time. So when you start a chat with ChatGPT and say, what's the capital of India? You pass in one sentence, and that's going to count as, let's say, 10 tokens or something like that. What is the capital of India? When it gives you an answer back, if it gives you 50 words, we'll call that about 100 tokens that it's given back to you. So you sent it 10 tokens, it sent you back 100 tokens. Tokens is just kind of almost the same as a word. It's just a little bit different. It's AI language. That's 110 tokens. 10 in, 100 out, 110 tokens. As you carry that conversation on further and further, you're building up a memory in the AI's mind about what you've been talking about, and we call that the context window. As soon as you get up to around 100,000, 200,000 tokens, AI starts to forget things. It just doesn't have a giant memory that it can hang on to. There's some complexities for why we are struggling in the year 2025 to get the context window above 200,000, but that's a little out of scope for this video. What you need to know, though, is that if your AI forgets what it's supposed to be doing because you gave it a really long list of tasks, well, it's not going to complete the task the way you want it to. So by asking it to follow a checklist and update the checklist, it will continuously remind itself of what it is supposed to be doing. And we are watching it live as it works its way through the integration points and the stages. And just like that, we're going to go ahead and allow it to get to phase 3, the testing strategy. So let's go ahead and do that. And the end result of all of this, just through the magic of video, we're going to fast forward to the part where it actually works. Windsurf was able to complete all the tasks that we gave it. It even wrote test cases and automated playwright test cases. That means it was able to open up the browser and automatically click the buttons and double check to make sure that the Kelp appeared. And we can see here that we even have a feature flag. A feature flag is the ability to turn on and off that Kelp whenever we need to in case it's causing performance issues as part of our application rollout. And here, the finished product. This is the new OurOtters site with just a little bit of Kelp. I'm probably going to play with the opacity just a little bit more through some settings, but ultimately I was happy with the look and feel. While it may not be everybody's favorite style choice, it's something we're going with, and I'm glad you joined us on this journey to really understand how we can take Windsurf from just being a prototype tool and actually start working it into production. And it's how we build everything here at OurOtters and everything at Boone Voyage. And I look forward to sharing new and exciting videos with you in the coming months on our journey through OurOtters and how we're using AI to even work on pitch decks and using ChatGPT to write our seed round pitch deck AR estimates. If you're starting to get excited about watching a startup from the inside go from zero to hero, I invite you to follow us here on LinkedIn, and we'll be starting a YouTube channel very soon in which we cover all these topics in more detail and give you the playbook for how you can do this yourself. Thanks for watching.